Welcome wherever you are watching around the world, and to all of our YouTube subscribers that have just joined us on the live feed. This is the 2019 Lanzhou International Marathon, and as you can see, things are just about getting ready for the start. That's just over 8 minutes away now, so stay with us on this stream for the 2019 Lanzhou International Marathon. As I said, coming up in just about 8 minutes.
女士们、先生们，新中国成立70周年奔跑中国系列宣传活动，兰州银行杯2019兰州国际马拉松赛开赛仪式即将开始。现在有请出席开赛仪式的领导和嘉宾步入主舞台。尊敬的各位领导、各位来宾以及现场的朋友们，大家上午好。首先，很荣幸地为大家介绍出席今天开幕仪式的领导和嘉宾，他们是甘肃省委常委、兰州市委书记李荣灿先生。Mr. Li Rongcan, member of the Standing Committee of the Gansu Provincial CPC Committee and the Secretary of the Municipal CPC Committee. 中国田径协会主席段世杰先生 ，Mr. 段世杰 ，President of China Athletic Association。甘肃省委常委、宣传部部长陈清女士 ，Ms. Chen Qing。Member of the Standing Committee of Gansu Provincial CPC Committee and the Minister of Publicity. 甘肃省政府副省长张世珍先生 ，Mr. 张世珍 ，Vice Governor of Gansu Provincial Government. 国际田联路跑委员会主席布拉格马拉松卡罗卡帕博先生 ，Mr. Carol Capallo, Chairman of IAAF Running Committee。国际马拉松路跑协会主席帕克博罗先生 ，Mr. Parker, Chairman of IAAF。国家体育总局田径运动管理中心书记、亚田联副主席、中国田径协会副主席王楠女士 ，Miss Wang Nan, Secretary of the Party Committee of the Track and Field Veteran Center of State General Administration of Support, Vice Chairman of China Athletic Association, the Vice President of Asia Athletic Association。甘肃省体育局局长王向晨先生。Mr. Wang Xiangchen, Director of Gansu Provincial Bureau of Sports。兰州市委副书记、市长张伟文先生。Mr. 张伟文 ，Deputy Secretary of Lanzhou Municipal CPC Committee and Mayor。兰州市政协主席李洪亚先生。Mr. 李洪亚 ，Chairman of Lanzhou Municipal Consultative Conference。接下来，我们有请中共兰州市委副书记、市长张伟文先生主持新中国成立70周年“奔跑中国”系列宣传活动——兰州银行杯2019兰州国际马拉松赛开赛仪式。
尊敬的各位领导、各位来宾。全体运动员、裁判员及工作人员，女士们、先生们
，Distinguished leaders, guests, athletics, referees, staff, and friends。
值此2019兰州国际马拉松赛开赛之际，我谨代表大赛组委会和400万兰州人民将莅临赛事的国际田联、国家体育和安全体育各位领导，以及来自世界各地的参赛员、各位嘉宾和国内外朋友们表示热烈欢迎。将关注这次兰州国际马拉松赛的社会各界人士表示衷心的感谢。凝聚智慧和力量。2019国际田联路跑会议的成功举办，为我们带来了全新的视角，注入了新的动力。新的赛点已经开启，衷心祝愿全体参赛选手焕发精神，激发活力，跑出新的成绩和精彩。祝各界朋友分享马拉松的激情，体验兰州的魅力和风采。
Now, the marathon course is ready. We sincerely wish every athlete to achieve best results in the race.
Welcome, wherever you are watching in the world, to the 2019 Lanzhou International Marathon. Here we are at the start line. As you can see, thousands of runners have gathered here in the beautiful city of Lanzhou in northwest China in Gansu province. This is one of the most famous marathons in China, not only for the scenic routes that you'll see as you go through. As we're just looking at the opening ceremony now. Some of the VIPs from the Chinese Athletics Association, Gansu Provincial Sports Bureau, and the Lanzhou Municipal People's Government about to get us underway here. The Chinese national anthem proudly played here at the start line of the 2019 Lanzhou International Marathon. As you can expect, we have a great field of elite runners that are taking part this year, and they've all been training. This, as I said, one of the biggest marathons in China. There are plenty of marathons in China, but have a look at that city. It's a unique place, Lanzhou City. As you can see the mountains in the north. There's actually mountains in the south as well, and that river there, probably the most famous river in China. That's the Yellow River itself. And this being one of the oldest cities on the Yellow River, well, there's a rich history, I can tell you that. And we'll be looking into some of that history as these runners go past on the course today. We'll be having a look at the course, of course, later on. Once again, welcome wherever you are watching around the world. Plenty of people watching right now. And we are 1 minute away from the start. There are the elites. And what's really interesting, as we get a shot of the huge army of runners behind them, is that there's about 8 of those elites that actually have already run personal best quicker than the course record here in Lanzhou. That's around 2:10, and some of those guys in there, men and women, actually have been close to pushing that record. We'll get to that information, of course, as we progress with the race. Right now, we can soak in some of the sights from the start line. My name is Jeevan Salvanathan. I'll be taking you through everything this morning. Bright and early start, just gone past 7:30 in the morning here in China. Not the earliest start for a marathon. Of course, some of the marathons around the world, the Dubai Marathon, of course, are starting much, much earlier. But that's usually because of the climate. Now, Lanzhou's climate is unique in itself, in that we are here on a sub-plateau that's some 1,000 meters above sea level. That makes it a very challenging prospect for the runners, and there are the start guns. And the 2019 Lanzhou International Marathon is a go. That clock has started ticking, and look at the sprightly pace from everyone. I'm thinking that's going to change. Just getting back to that climate issue, well, 1,000 meters above sea level puts it at roughly the same altitude as the likes of Denver and Colorado. And that is very high indeed, of course. When you think of the physical effects on the body of running 42.1 kilometers, now that's at sea level. Well, yeah, just take out a lot of the oxygen in the air, they can get thinner, and of course the humidity is the other massive factor, because the humidity in these parts can reach down to 20%. And what this means is, of course, your body starts changing its heat exchange system, and you might not be jumping around like that for very much longer. But a lot of the runners that do take part in the Lanzhou International Marathon see this marathon as its own separate challenge. Yes, you might get personal best. Yes, you might get close to the course record. But the time that you run up here in the clouds almost will really define to yourself the physical shape you're in, and of course how you can then use that on the classic distance in some of the other marathons around China. Of the marathons, of course, there's the Yangzhou Marathon, there's Xiamen, Wuhan, Hangzhou, Chongqing. But for the top 3, obviously Beijing and Shanghai are 1 and 2. But third after that is the Lanzhou International Marathon. It's been 8 years it's been run now. 2011 on the 3rd of July. That was the first time it was run. And 18,000 runners took part then. If you think that's a big number, well, that jumped to 32,000 the following year. And it jumped again to 40,000 in 2013. That's roughly where it stood, but mainly because, of course, the logistics. You can only have a certain amount of runners on there. I'm sure they'd love to have 100,000 runners turning up here. But what's more important, I think, is the fact that it really has ingrained itself, not just in the city culture, but also marathon culture as well. Great shot from the heli. Heli will be tracking that army of runners as they start moving across the course. All sorts taking part today. No special wheelchair category. You can find that in some of the other marathons around, but the roads here are very good, very wide, good tarmac, good surface. So with that climate and it being generally flat but at a high altitude, as we look at one of the bridges on the Yellow River. That's the Yantan Yellow River Bridge. That's actually the first turning point for 1 kilometer. Here's the racing group of the elites, and we're expecting to see them pretty close together, actually. All sorts of running clubs, as you'd expect, have come, and it's great to see once again another huge marathon in China with such an amazing turnout. And if you think the runners have turned out well, just wait till you see all of the fans that line the streets, because marathon running in China has actually become a very family-based event. It's a very, it's almost a day out, whether you're running or whether you're not. And for most of these runners out here, they're not going to be looking for personal best, and they're not going to be looking to challenge the elites. Most of the time, their running technique is going to be hampered by holding a phone, I'm sure, and taking a few pictures, but that's what it's about for them. Some of them may have been up, of course, watching the Champions League final that was on last night. Congratulations to Liverpool fans. Let's wonder if we're going to see any Liverpool tops out here today. Maybe it was a little bit too late finishing for them. These guys, as I said, if you're going to prepare for a 7 o'clock start the marathon, then you do have to be ready at about 4. These guys, the elites, probably ready about 3. Now, looking at their pace so far, well, 3 minutes per kilometer is generally what is considered as World Championship pace, and as you can see, at 1.22 kilometers, 4 minutes done. No surprise to see the elites at that rate, at that pace now. What will be interesting is around about 21 kilometers, and of course 35 kilometers as well when things start getting, well, really interesting. That is the Yantan Yellow River Bridge. We just had a quick shot of it, and one of the famous bridges across the Yellow River. The most famous being the Zhongshan Bridge, and we'll be getting to that a bit later on the course. But as you can see there, those fans on the bridge already lining the course, and the elites breaking away from the pack already. Now, if we can just well, I suppose the update story that you should know from the elites, there is always one in there, is that big story that a lot of the runners in there have actually, 8 runners have already set personal bests that are better than the course record. The course record was set by Abena Ayala of Ethiopia in 2015. That was a 2:10.10. And 2 of the runners, Limine Getachew, if you can see him, he'll be wearing the, the 102, number 102, and Benson Suri wearing the 103 bib. There are 2 of the fastest contenders. Well, Getachew set a 2:06.49. That was in Paris in 2014. And Benson Suri from Bahrain, he's 35 years old now, but he has also put in a 2:07.37, and that was set last December in Valencia. Both of those times some 3 minutes clear of the course record. So there is a fear that the course record in both the men's and the women's groups will be attacked today. And of course in the women's field, well, we all know about the name Worknesh Adesa from Ethiopia. She improved her personal best to 2:21 in Dubai earlier this January. That was a very fast race from her, ran a negative split and came out on top. She's 26 years old now, so in the prime of her running career. And also Gutemi Shone, 27, that's another title contender. She has won the Ottawa and Seoul marathons. And immediately, as I said, that is Limine Getachew up at the front in the white bib. And just behind him, well, we should be seeing Benson Suri somewhere in that racing group. In fact, that might even be him out on the left. But that's the man in the white and orange, or white top and orange shorts, red trainers, footwear I should say. Looking at some of those other numbers in there. Just quickly, as we look at the Yellow River, this, a lot of people say it's the most important river in China, but there are a lot of others, of course, the Yangtze River as well. The Yellow River, well, look at the confluence on it, look at the power of it, and it was really, it has fed this region since almost 81 BC. Lanzhou is that old, literally. It has ancient culture steeped absolutely everywhere, all stemming from this river. Before the bridges turned up, before hydroelectric power, it was water wheels that actually powered from that powerful confluence. and there are some 250 of them. Here is the men's leading group. That looks like Andrew Ben Kimutai, who good to see again. I have had the honor of watching the Xiamen Marathon, the Wuhan Marathon, and the Suzhou Marathon this year, and Andrew Ben Kimutai definitely put in a very good performance. And just as we look at the army that's following up, the other big name to mention in the women's contingent is Fantu Jima. She was actually the winner in the Wuhan Marathon, and well, it was a 2:28.25. And there you go. Looking at that, it is in fact Justice Kipchoge Kumutai, so it's not Andrew Ben in the 111, but Benson, Kiplagat, Limene Getachew, and Bira, the big three names there. But really, you can't count out anybody that has that Ethiopian flag in front of their name. A couple of Kenyans in there as well, Philemon. And this is the women's elite list. All gold runners, essentially. Worknesh Edesa, Guteni Shone, and also Japan's Tanaka Momoka. There's Fantu Aticha Jima. And it'll be interesting to see Fantu against Worknesh. Well, hasn't been seen that often. We're going to see it this time along. So we'll let those elites get into their stride. And we'll let these guys settle into whatever pace they wish to. Great scenes here from Lanzhou, as you'd expect. And there is that leading men's pack. Good to see a couple of Chinese runners in there as well. Just off on the left of your screen. The main body of runners making their way over Antoniello Bridge. Once again, that is the first turning in the course before the entire field starts moving westward. There are 3 runs happening today. In fact, 4 if you count. There's a family run, a health run. Those are the small runs for the average runner. But for the elites, the full marathon and the half marathon, we'll be looking at that course just a bit. Right now, this is still a good pace from the elites. 10 minutes with 3 kilometers done, so just over 3 minutes a kilometer. And that would, if you kept at that pace, keep you at world record level. Of course, the world record still held by Eliud Kipchoge. A fantastic time set in Berlin. Now, this is Ho Shubing statue, General Ho Shubing, one of the leading military figures in the history of Lanzhou. Beautiful statue there, and as they come off the bridge you can see the turning, and that will head the entire field left and heading westward. Now it looks like Nagawa has now made himself out to the front. So many stories. Most of these guys, of course, will be looking to run a negative split. If you do put on a lot of pace from the start, as Nagawa is, well, it could lead to a lot of trouble later on. Of course, that world record of 2:01.39 set in Berlin, unbelievably fast and unbelievably close to the 2-hour mark from Eliud Kipchoge, was a negative split. He essentially ran a very, a slower first half to the race, and then for the second 21 kilometers was, on that day, was picking up pace literally every kilometer for the last kilometer. The last 10 kilometers was a fantastic performance. But that is, of course, the benchmark now. So if you're going to do it, it might be a better option in cooler climbs like this to maybe hold off the lead for the first half of the race and then settle into a faster run in the second. But you can never tell the pace. Never tell how much these guys have been training. We've seen runners come in and literally break their personal best by some 3 or 4 minutes. Well, that's a huge running group there. A lot of offices and companies, of course, have set up groups, running groups as well. But it's just a testament to how popular running is these days in China. Some 400 marathons a year. Of that, of course, the top 10, you need to get to a certain level, and that's where the Chinese Athletics Association and the IAAF come in, of course. And this Lanzhou Marathon, as I said, the 3rd biggest marathon in China, as we look at Asunake Negawa still leading the men's pack. Well, this marathon, the third in China, is a gold label event across the board. It is not only a gold label race for the Chinese Athletics Association, but it's also an IAAF gold label race. And what that means is that it is fantastically well organized, fantastically well supported. There's a number of nationalities here. Here's the course map for today. All 3 routes, the full half and health run starting at the Gansu International Convention and Exhibition Center there. And all the runners, as we just saw, making that turn over the Yantan Yellow Bridge and then head east past the Lanzhou Sports Park before the famous Zhongshan Iron Bridge. The 5-kilometer health run stops there. The family run also stops at Jingchengbai Road. Then the half and full, as you can see, continue westward along the riverbank. The half marathon then hits back, turns its turning point at the Shilihei Bridge crossing, and then heads east again past all those wonderful sites that we'll be looking at before it ends up at the Gansu Exhibition Center. Meanwhile, the full run will continue westward from kilometer 13 to 24. More sites for them. That is Jinyan Bridge that they're passing. And they will literally get to the edge of the city on the west side before they make their turn back. And then it is down the opposing bank of the Yellow River, past all those famous bridges. And of course the Mother of Life statue, that's the 30-kilometer mark there. And then it joins that half marathon route. Not quite finishes at the same mark. The half marathon, as you can see, finishes on a different road. The full marathon will come back to the International Convention and Exhibition Center here. Fantastic course for all 3 runs, and over the years it has proved very testing for these runners. We're going to see whether that is the case today. Now, of course, the elites already well underway on that race, 4.61 kilometers, and it looks like we've had a slight change at the front. There's one of those wonderful performances. That looks like a Tai Chi performance going on right now. The Lanzhou Marathon Park, one of the first sites that these guys will be running past. Of course, their focus is going to be on that 30 meters just ahead of them, but it is nice to see walk past. And there's another good shot of those roads, fantastic roads and running surface here in Lanzhou. As you can see there, 15 minutes completed now. Still an absolutely perfect pace from them. Now that looks like up front, that's actually Afterwork Mesfin that's now taken the lead. We've had 3 different leaders in this first 15 minutes. And I can see Bira Siboka also there. That's the number 105 bib. So our 2 favorites, Limine Getachew and Benson Sure, look to be sitting in the middle of that racing group. And that is a very, very good plan. Perfect conditions right now with the humidity. I mean, I'm sure they would have wished for the humidity to be a little bit higher, but all that means is you just have to be a little bit more stringent about your refreshment cycle, as you'd expect with such a high level of organization here at the Lanzhou International Marathon. Drinks and refreshments, medical stations will be available at the usual markers, 2, 2.5 and 5 kilometers. And of course, we'll be looking in on their running splits, the 5, 10, 15. Those 5 kilometer splits are the real benchmarks for these guys. Still running a pretty good race. Just slowing down a bit now. 5.3 kilometers, 16 minutes. Not looking for world records, but they don't need to. Now that's not something you see very often, that one of the duty officers is actually in direct line of the runners, but it was a refreshment station. And look at that beautiful boat on the Yellow River. And the one thing that just gets me about the Yellow River every time I see it is the power of it. Look at the size of that current. That's a great shot from the helicopter. The Yellow River running through Lanzhou from west to east. The total length of it, some 150 kilometers. It really is an amazing sight to see. A lot of the crew here were taking pictures yesterday. Now, these look like some of the runners just behind the leading pack. And for these fun runners, well, they're not going to be worrying too much about their running style. So far, the running style from this leading pack, and there was a fear, by the way, this weekend, that with so many runners that have personal bests 3 minutes faster than the course record, that we might even get a blanket finish. We might even get a number of runners crossing the line at the same time, because they are extremely well prepared. Some of these guys, of course, will be having their eyes on the World Championships later on this year in Qatar. It's a very, well, detailed, shall we say, qualification process for that. I know that some of the top Chinese runners actually qualified at the Xiamen International Marathon. That was the first marathon of the year. It was a good race as well. But for the Ethiopians and Kenyans, well, there's so many in the field that they're just going to be looking to put in some good markers as they go. So far, everything looking good. And we have another leader up at the front, and that's Shumet Alkanu Mengistu, gold-rated Ethiopian runner. So we've had Getachun Benson up front, we've had Bira up front, we've had Mesfin up front, and we've also had Kimutai Nagawo. Now, that theory that we've got 8 runners that are really fighting that, fighting for the entire course length, has already been proved to some extent in the first 6 kilometers, as we have already had 6 different leaders in this pace, in this group. And it is early, it is still very early, and the pace that they set now is really still settling into their rhythm. But it'll be interesting to see how this pack either stays together or breaks up over the next 10 to 15 kilometers. Already, as you can see behind them, a very long distance before the chasing pack. We'll be looking in with the women as well, as soon as they are settling into this second part. And there's that continuing flowing army of runners making their way over the bridge and then making that turn and heading westward down this southern bank of the Yellow River. That's a great shot from the helicopter, and you can see just ahead of them another one of those fantastic bridges. That's the Jinyan Bridge, and that should be at the 4 kilometer mark for them. These guys have gone past that. Everybody out this morning. It's been a busy morning in Lanzhou for sure. Jinyan Yellow River Bridge. One of the more modern bridges that was built over this fantastic river, but basically all of these bridges together have led to a lot more commercialization and economic power around here as well. This whole city of Lanzhou, even in 81 BC, of course, was famous for the Silk Road. Everybody knows about the Silk Road. Well, it essentially starts right here. And one of the more recent projects, a really exciting project that's been happening, which all of these bridges are connected to really, is the Silk Road Eco Restoration Project, which is bringing back the Silk Road, but with high-speed rail networks. How amazing is that? How cool is that? And there are already a number of rail networks that have been set up in Longhai, Lanjin, Lanqing. The health run has already finished. Fantastic performance there. That 5 kilometers. Jinchang Bay Road, that's the finish line for the first run. Now this is good running form from these elites up front. And that is Bira Sipoga in the purple top, who's now putting a bit of distance actually. Ethiopian runner with a personal best of 2:07, and that was set in Valencia. Very capable runner, has a little look around him just to make sure and see what the status of that racing group is. That is the biggest gap that we've seen so far. Now, this is the women's leading group, and as usual, we see them up with some of the faster men's runners. Of course, the women's record, world record, still held for many years now by the UK's Paula Radcliffe, who's now, of course, a commentator as well, and you can learn a lot about marathon running from listening to Paula. I wonder if any of these women would come anywhere close to the 2:15 that she said. That's actually a men's time that she said that it might just stand for a lot longer. But these guys, or these ladies, I should say, they're going to be looking for something around 2:26. Pantujima will be wearing the 3:14 bib. And Worknesh Odessa with the 3:01 bib. We can't really make out those numbers right now, but that looks like Worknesh there. Once we get a clearer shot of that women's leading group, we'll be able to let you know. But we can expect them to keep a pretty good pace, just like the men, for at least the first 21 kilometers. And then after that, that's when marathons really start kicking off. Now, as we get past the Jinyan Bridge and we keep going, that's all the other bridges that are on there. Such an important achievement to do that. It is still right now Vera Siboka Imbushe, and just behind him, that's said it would be interesting to see how this pack would break up. Well, two of them now, and I'll just get the bib number as soon as we get, well, that is Asunake Nagawa, who is right up the front. He wants to keep pace with Biro. Getting to the refreshment station, very important to keep hydrated here in Lanzhou, being so high up. Great shots. And that's another one of the performances, as you can see, just on the side of the track as we look at the front and back there of the track. 7.97 coming up to 8 kilometers now, 25, so just over 3 minutes a kilometer now. And that is the water wheel park. I did say earlier about the water wheels that used to power this city in ancient times. Some 250 water wheels in the city, and if you do take a little walk around, you can see all of them. As you can see, they're still moving as well, but really power is now derived from somewhere else. The water wheels had a very symbolic meaning back in the old days as well, because of the circular motion of it. Now here's the split at 5 kilometers, what we were looking for. Afterwork Mesfin seems to be leading the way there. That's more important than actually being in front of the pack right now. It's where you were at 5 kilometers. And I'm expecting those splits to be very, very close indeed. Nagawa now dropping back a little bit. And that is Shumet Mengistu that has come up front. And still, there's Guan Yusheng, one of the more reliable top runners in China, already qualified for the World Championships, and is currently leading the pack here. Good to see. A little bit of a chat there from our two front leaders. So that, definitely enjoying it. Looking at some of the runners behind them, while I can see Mike Mutai on the right. I'll have to get back to that. Some of the smiles beginning to fade a little bit from the half marathoners and the other runners, and that is in fact Mutai on the right of your screen. On the left of your screen, taking up that flank, that's Samuel Mwangi, both of them in the white tops, and right in the middle, that's Dube Teshomo. Philippon Chiboy. And I just had a glimpse of Benson Surai in that blue top there. It's hard to pick out exactly where they're running. There's kind of like 3 mini groups within that group. The roads, as you can see, have been closed off, as they are every year. The Lanzhou Municipal People's Government makes sure that these roads are cleared for this marathon, and of course you can't keep them closed. It's such a busy city, and they'll be open and staged at various parts, usually about 1.5 hours after the runners come through, that those roads will be open again. But of course this morning, trying to get here at 5, 6 in the morning, you have to make sure you get here very, very early indeed. Now, another change up at the front, in the leading pack. That may have just been Schumit Mengistu again. Well, we have seen already about 6 or 7 lead changes. All of this leading group showing some good body carriage. When I say body carriage, because I mean how you are, in fact, your body dynamics. All pretty upright, arms nice and high, good pendulum motion. And you can see the difference, of course, between them and the average runner. That's you and me. Here, you get your forward lean, you start moving forward, and it is about managing it. But you would be surprised how easy it is to pick up. Going uphill now, as you can see, that's a little bit different because it starts pushing on your calves and your hamstrings, and you start feeling it a little bit more. That seems to be a good temperament in that men's leading group right now. Nagawa seems to have dropped back a little bit, and this looks like Benson coming up on the left side. There he is, 103 with that blue and pink bib. Loco Clement, 110 bib, middle, and Justice Kimutai right in the middle. Now that's a much better way of looking at the 3 mini groups behind, kind of moving into 1 or 2 groups sometimes, and of course your leader up at the front that's still looking like Vera. That is the most famous bridge in Lanzhou city. Why? Because it's the oldest bridge. It was the first bridge that was ever built over this massive, powerful river. The Zhongshan Iron Bridge was actually built in 1907 by Germans, believe it or not. But that really did change things around here. There is Benson Surai. Next to him, Wang Yi. Once again, if you've just joined us, this is the 8th Lanzhou International Marathon. And there's about 8 of those elites that could break the course record today. That's what we're going to be looking for. Oh, this group seems to be really stretching out now. I wonder if they're coming up to a refreshment spot. They should be. They're coming up to the 10-kilometer stops. So Mutai, Nagawa, Boucher, and Kimutai kind of in that low flank there up at the front. That is Guan Yousheng just behind that pack, but still in sight. Good running form from Guan. Very important to keep your head upright, keep your neck open, because of course it's very easy to start slouching over, and that actually cuts off the amount of oxygen into your body, so it's not ideal. But as I said, it is very easy to look at running styles when you're still in the first 10 kilometers. Another beautiful shot from the helicopter, and that's the stone tablets. There are so many dynasties that have come and, well, I suppose lived through the lifetime of Lanzhou. The Han dynasty, the Wei dynasty, Sui dynasty, that's from 81 BC. Of course, the Song dynasty in 1014, Ming dynasty in 1368. And each of them have left historical remnants around the city, which makes it really, really beautiful. None of them, of course, built this bridge. I told you that was built by German engineers under Chinese supervision in 1907, and it really did help the city. Good refreshment stop there from Din Boucher. Clinical execution. You'd be surprised how much time you can lose by not having it or not knowing where your refreshments are. So far, absolutely nothing. You could say Timbouche has spent more time up at the front, but really there's about 6 or 7 runners on his tail in that group, and Guan Yusheng, as you can see, just hanging back behind them as we cross the 10-kilometer mark. It is incredible, the speed and pace of elite marathon runners these days. Of course, still only one man has come close to, well, Dennis Kimetto came pretty close as well, but one man has come very, very close to the 2-hour mark. Elliot Kipchoge with that 2:01.39. That's the Yuantong Bridge, the next bridge up for the runners. Have a look at another modern bridge. And what's great about these bridges is, of course, you can get to see the different styles of design that have propagated the river. That's a really good trajectory as we check in with the fun runners. It's a really good trajectory for the helicopter to be flying on right now. 34 minutes in the 2019 Lanzhou International Marathon, and we have quite a sparkling race on show, full of color, full of energy, and full of competition as well. There he is, Vera Siboko. And once again, runners breaking off to the other side of the road. Maybe just to make this uphill stretch a little bit easier. Inagawa in there. And really, one running in isolation at the moment. Which is more than we can say. Some of these Lanzhou residents, so well supported as a run. And back on the Yellow River with the helicopter now. Chengguan Yellow River Bridge. It's going to be part of the course. As you can see, it's already been set up. Moving through, there are the Zhongshan and Yuantong bridges seen from the opposing side. You can just see there the difference in the two banks. One highly residential and, I should say, commercial with the buildings, and the other side, well, a little bit more historical and, of course, dynamic in terms of its topography. So back with the men's leading group. And who is that has moved up on front? Well, it's Mike Mutai that's now taken the lead. As I said, very difficult to actually say that. The Garces especially has always stayed in the top 3. Some of these runners taking part today have only ever finished in the top 3 of any marathon that they've ever competed in. I know that is the case for some of the women's runners as well. So they won't be too phased right now with where they are in the group. It is a big group, though. I count at least 14 runners in that group. Now, some of the smiles have faded from those fun runners, but they're still out on the course. They are. Sometimes, of course, kept up by the sight of a camera. These cameras, of course, broadcasting today all over the world. Such is the prestige of this marathon. There is 13 runners in that first group. 8 of them, as I said, with personal bests, some 3 minutes faster than the course record of 2:10, and currently on course for at least the course record, which is going to be interesting. And I did say, of all those historical remnants from all those dynasties that have lived through the lifespan of the city of Lanzhou, well, there's another one. If you ever do get to come out here. Lanzhou does attract some over 30 million tourists, mainly to come and see that kind of stuff. Great views from up there as well. Steeped in tradition, and of course, just like any other Chinese city, it's not just the historical stuff, the food, the cuisine, and just generally the outlook. Have a look at that. What a fantastic shot from the helicopter. Now back on track, I should say on the road, coming up to the 12-kilometer mark and some 40 minutes done. So definitely running just under 3 minutes per kilometer, or just over, I should say. Which is good enough, especially with 12 kilometers down. Mutai, Nagasa, Regasa, and the Gawo that line. Wangi on the left, and Surai in the middle, and still nothing from Limine Getachew, who I'm assuming is at the back of that pack. We haven't actually seen that 102 bib. Getting out and having a run every now and then. At the 12-kilometer freshman stop, and again, effective and efficient technique across the side of the road. Still very good running conditions, some 40 minutes into the race now. And what's really important is it's very overcast today, quite cloudy around Lanzhou, so they don't have to run in direct sunlight. Once you run in direct sunlight in a marathon, then that heat exchange system, your aerobic engine, well, it kind of goes up a gear because of the direct sun on the skin. So very good conditions for running, not just for the elites, but for all the runners taking part today, and there are tens of thousands. So still Mutai, Nagasa, and Regasa up front, but no signs yet of this leading pack full of some 13 elites. There they are, breaking up in any ways. You can just see no one really edging out and creating a distinct advantage. All the distances between them now look like they can be made up. How about that? That's the Zhaojihu overpass, the Yellow River Bridge, another one of them. This is a great bridge, and it also forms a central part of the course. That's straight after the Zhongshan Bridge. That's the Zhaojihu overpass or flyover. So again, you can see beautiful design. A flotilla of boats just making their way through it. So 12.81 kilometers. That's the split at 5 kilometers that we saw earlier. Bira, oh, that should actually be the 10 kilometer split, I'm thinking. Bira Saboka is still on 31.53. That's not bad. But look at that. Just there's literally seconds in it between them. And that's what I was trying to say. The distances between the runners right now in this leading group are just not big enough to not be overtaken at some other part of the race. They're all in with a shout. And by staying at the same pace, it means that none of them have fallen for the temptation of really pushing ahead now, because they realize that around about 21 kilometers.
12月31号的时候，习总书记在新年贺词中提到，我们都要努力奔跑，我们都是追梦人，所以我每次跑全程马拉松都拿着这把扇子，就是努力努力奔跑，然后扬帆追梦。因为我的名字叫张帆，我的网名叫铁兔阿帆。我上次在绍兴那个跑兔子，我们都见过面。
所以我们都是追梦人哈。
我们都是追梦人。
对，以这样奔跑的方式向共和国七十华诞献上份礼。
哎，是的，是的，是的。
加油！
好的，好的，谢谢啊。哎。
Well, great to have Dong Rina, our sports reporter, out on the course talking to the people, and that was just one of the runners saying that it's great to work very hard when you come out for the Lanzhou International Marathon. We'll be crossing down. It's great to have that input today. Now back with the men's leading pack, now closing in on 14 kilometers. Unbelievable, the pace still. But you do find that when you have lots of top runners together, that they do act as their own paces. There are no paces here today because this group is essentially acting as it. As we can see there, well, that's Mwangi has moved on the inside. Dinbushe, one of our early leaders, has decided to settle back. And then Gassa also. And now beginning to stretch up as they come downhill. That looked like Justice Kimutai up at the front now. These guys just exchanging the lead. Some 45 minutes gone. Can expect that half marathon to be coming to a close in roughly 17 to 18 minutes. I can tell that, of course, because everybody knows that half marathons do finish on about an hour and 1 hour 2. Those are, of course, the top times. It could even be up to an hour 10, but the 21 kilometer distance better for maybe some of the more aging runners. There is a big debate going on as to whether marathon runners, as we look at Zhaojihu Park, that's just ahead of the bridge. Look at the greenery and ecosystem, the wetlands in there, brilliant. Really beautiful place to walk around, and I can see another performance happening there as well. Just as I was saying, there is a debate going on whether marathon runners are essentially the same as other sportsmen. In other sports, if you get older, if you get to 35, 36, then a lot of people would say your football career, your racing career is pretty much, or your playing career is essentially done. Well, with marathon, it's a little bit different because you do, of course, pick up the experience and you learn the distance over more and more time. And we have seen marathons run all the way up to and won by people all the way up to 38 years old. So it's not generally seen, but the experience factor does play a huge difference. And of course, if you're younger, you still have that fresh VO2 max engine. Talking of VO2 max, of course, the Ethiopian and Kenyan runners have such an incredible ability to change oxygen into energy by living at such high altitude. For them, 1,000 meters above sea level is still pretty much fine. They're not going to feel any shortness of breath at all. Now, interesting there from Tishone, looks like a bit of a truncated running style right in the middle of that pack, 1:14. Very short stride length for such a big man. Now that's a very important statue. That's the Yellow Mother statue. I can tell you a lot about that statue because it was actually designed by a very famous builder. It was created by Hei Yi. It's 6 meters long, 2 meters wide, 2.6 meters high, and 40 tons. And it is, well, the mother is the Yellow River, and the boy sitting next to her is China. And that's how important that river is to China. Built in 1986. It's another fantastic point of interest here in Lanzhou International Marathon. Back with this pretty sizable group, and still absolutely nothing between them. I'm guessing the 15-kilometer splits will also reflect that. I'm guessing there's got to be maximum 30-40 seconds between these guys from front to back of this pack. Maximum. I really doubt that. It's probably going to be a lot less. Actually, it's probably about 2. It's very hard to see when you're at the front of the pack. Might be a 30 to 40 second gap to the chasing group after this, but there's definitely less than 5 seconds. There is a very clear shot of the women's leading group. Just as I say that, it gets the blips, and that is indeed Worknadesh Adesa in the pack there. I can just see her in the burgundy bib off on the left side. That's 3:01. And it looks like Aberu Zanebi in the blue top is actually leading that pack. And we're looking for Fantujima. That's also Sifan Demise, the white top. And that looks like Fantujima just behind them, yes, in the second blue top on the second line. And that's the top Chinese runner here, Zhao Anjing. Her personal best being a 2:39.26, and that was this year in Wuxi. So a lot of, and that looks like a group of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 ladies, 8 ladies in fact in that women's group just behind this front guard, acting as paces for them. And that's Westnorthern Adesa, who put in such a fantastic performance at the Dubai Marathon earlier this year. Quick look at the northern side of the river again. Literally the hills and mountains just start at the riverbank and move up. What a tourist spot. Classical Chinese architecture there. So Demise, that's Westnorthern next to her. Doesn't look too tired. In fact, all the ladies looking in pretty good form right now. That's Imana. Shone Imana, one of the contenders for the title, and the course record looking to be broken here as well. The course record in the ladies race is still held by Kenya's Rael Kiara. Set that 4 years ago. That's a 2:31.22. And actually Rael was out this week in the press saying she's out injured, she couldn't compete today, but she said it's going to be hard to run faster even in these conditions. Her exact words were, "I have to warn the pretenders to the throne. It will take more energy from them to equal or break the course record." That's from the current course record holder. But once again, there is a course record holder out with injuries. The winner in the men's last year, of course, Kelly Gazagan, also out, not taking part today. He finished last year with a 2:11. That's a pretty good run. 1 minute outside the course record. That's good running form from Demise. Good pivot on the shoulders, steady. Focus and neck position. Once again, compare that back to the average runner. You can see there is little running style for these guys, but it's about a different perspective. That's what you should be doing, keeping your hands pretty close in front of you, nice and high as well, because that keeps your shoulders upright, and that of course forces the neck to be straight. So we have a front men's leading pack of some 13 runners. We have a women's leading pack of some 8 runners at 15 kilometers. That is another beautiful shot of the Yellow River. And once again, you can see the difference in topography on either side of the riverbank. Really beautiful city, Lanzhou. And still this men's leading group hasn't broken into 2 separate groups. That's what I was kind of expecting would happen. But so far it hasn't. I was expecting at least 3 or 4 of these top guys. Maybe Mutai, Surai, Nagasa, Nagawa, Mwangi, who are of course all in the lead at one point, to maybe move ahead and start their own mini racing group. But credit to the likes of Shone and everybody else behind them, and of course Nimine Getachu's in there as well, because they wheelchair race now underway. Just see on the clock behind them, close to an hour behind the elites. Looks like it might be the last group leaving this. Another Tai Chi / Wushu performance happening along the route. The women spreading out on the road. Imana looking a little bit labored in her movement. Tiny bit. I don't know if that is actually just tweaked to her running style, or whether she is feeling a bit of a tingle in the back shoulders perhaps, because the shoulders did look like they were moving a little bit too mechanically and not so fluidly. If you look at Durgo there, you can see looks like those arms are just punching, tiny little punch bag right in front of you, and very much like a boxer who will keep touching his head just to remind himself that he has to guard. It is a very good focal point for runners if you can just keep your arms in the right place. Generally speaking, the body and your hips will move. Now looking at the splits at 15 kilometers, again, just absolutely nothing between these ladies, but it is Sifan Dimise and pretty much an entire Ethiopian group there. Looking good at the hour mark, or 5 minutes before. And that was pretty effective in terms of hydrating themselves. Look at that, what a great shot. Thousands of people bouncing up and down, running their hearts out today in Lanzhou City. Some may finish, some may not, but that's not the point. The women's group, again, being flanked by these male runners. They're all kind of sticking together behind them now. And it still does look like it's Mise up front, yes. Actually just behind Zanebi. There is Fantujima, winner in Wuhan with a 2:28. Pretty much cleared the field there, had a very good run, had to outlast 3 other runners pretty much down to the last corner, last couple of kilometers, that she powered through. She's going to look to follow that up with at least a top 3 here, she would have thought, up against the likes of Westnorthern. It might be a bit of an ask for the win, but you never know. Here is the finish of the health run and the family run on Jingchang Bay Road. Lots of runners streaming through that, and that will clear the course. I should probably imagine that the front part of that road would be closed off once the guys come in, but you'd be surprised actually with the cut-off times. Now, I did say that Imana looked a little bit troubled. Looking at her there, still not 100% convinced. 16 kilometers, you can just see a little bit of pain on the face, and I'm wondering if that is a niggle. She's now settled back to the back of that group. Workdash has come up to the front of that group, and as we check in with the men again, Boucher, Bengal, Regassa by the looks of it. And there's Benson Surai from Bahrain on the right side. Still nothing from Lemini Getachew, probably the most notable name in that pack that hasn't taken the lead, but is just staying in contention. And these are the beautiful running surfaces that they have to run on today. And in fact, every year for the last 8 years. And that's why, as I said earlier in the program, races like Lanzhou International Marathon have been awarded gold label from pretty much all the institutions that need to. In this case, the IAAF itself and the Chinese Athletic Association. There is another level that's coming next year, and Lanzhou will most probably be one of the front runners along with Beijing and Shanghai. It's the platinum level. If you look at Baihei Park, and that should be that performance that we saw a little bit earlier. Well, it may have broken up a little bit, but what a beautiful park that is. Lanzhou dotted with parks and really well landscaped green areas. So if you do take a walk around the city, it is quite an eye-opening experience. As I was saying, there is a new level in the IAAF Road Race Label Rating Series, Platinum, which is coming out next year, and only a few of the gold label races will be able to make that. Essentially, that is obviously an even greater level of organization, but it is very much a broadcasting standard, and we see a lot more nationalities taking part, and of course those nationalities actually being followed by their countries through all sorts of digital broadcast technologies. It is a great level of racing to get to, but as of yet nobody's been awarded that level, and we're just expecting, I think, around the world that the gold label races would be the ones to pick that up first. The other races, of course, will have to make it to gold before they get there. Do stay tuned for details on that. The marathon season globally, of course, well underway now, 6 months in. Literally starts on January the 1st and pretty much goes year long. But definitely the significant point for a lot of these high-level elites is going to be the World Championships in Qatar in October. Very exciting times for the likes of Neshidesa. Demise seems to have just sat back a little now. It's actually Fatuma Dergo has now come to the front of that pack. Just behind those male runners in the blue bib. Look at that support. Here's the turn point. I'm guessing a lot of these marathoners, that turn point will be a welcome sign around now that the lack of humidity in Lanzhou begins to be felt. Wow, that looks a little bit more labored as they move uphill here after the turning point.
今天的这个跑步梯非常的醒目哈，中国七十滑蛋共和国七十滑蛋的一个纪念 T， 而且带着国旗。对，什么样的一个跑步宣言？今天在蓝马赛道上，
我今天这个很高兴能跟大家一起跑这个蓝马半马，特别的激动。这个我的目标就是说，不是为了跑得快，而是为了跑得快乐。
那作为一个女子800米的世界纪录保持者哈，刘东今天在蓝马上面一个什么样的目标？你要跑多少公里啊？
跑半马了。今天报的只是半马，一点一点来。希望明年的兰州马拉松我要争取跑一个全马。
争取在今年的这个蓝马的 PP 墙上见到你的名字哈。这是跑友哈，什么样的祝福给我们今天的蓝马？
今年正好是建国70周年，所以呢，我希望我们所有的跑者以今天的这个拼搏精神，献礼祖国70周年。
加油中国！
加油加油中国！
加油！
好，加油加油加油！哎，您这个踢着足球来跑，快！
运动。
讲。
Well, once again,
足球运动员，是个足球运动员。
您是
然后我在西安，西安玉仙，然后对，然后呢这边呢，好来兰州呢，就是说又喜欢跑马拉松嘛，所以说2个运动相结合的一块，都是有氧运动，比较开心，挺好的。
所以2个都舍不得哈。
都舍不得。
这个踢球快跑累。
好的，谢谢董姐姐啊。
So that was Dong Rina, our on the track reporter, and talking to some of those runners who were just saying that they're very happy to be here, and it's not really about speed for them, as you could tell because they did stop for an interview, but also pointed out that it is a very important year for China in that it is in terms of nation building. It's the 70th anniversary, if I'm right, which is a huge achievement if you think of some of the massive projects that have been, even if it's just the Silk Road Eco Restoration Project. The future of China is so bright, and not just in all terms, but in marathon terms especially. Look at the support here, look at the smiles on these faces, and you can only expect that marathon community from some 400 marathons a year to be growing. Now, this is an interesting development at 20 kilometers. I did say marathons only really start at 21 kilometers. That's when most people might hit the wall. And of course, 35 kilometers, that last burst, is really going to make the difference. Now, Din Boucher, who was leading, one of the leaders in this pack, has now put up a decent enough distance ahead of everyone else that you'd have to say that that's going to be pretty tough to catch up unless you get into a full sprint, which is near impossible when you've been running at this pace and your body's been conditioned. Wang Yesheng still running in isolation and still showing the resilience and strength that we know of him. And look at that, just absolutely solid running style. For every time we see Guan, whether it's here or in any other marathon, it's just a really upright position, really strong pace, and always a threat to those elites. But these guys from Kenya and Ethiopia are so fast. And what's great to see now is that they are beginning to spread out. It's a surprise in second, because that was actually, if I'm right, Shown, it might be, who was right in the middle of that pack, who's now come out in second. And we'll have to get a closer look to see exactly what's happening in the back, but still nothing from Lemine Getachew. Haven't seen him leading the pack, and we haven't actually seen him in the pack, but I'm sure he's in there because it was a big enough pack to hold it. But as for Biro Din Boucher right now, this has to keep this pace. 21 kilometers. So we have an Ethiopian leading, as we probably expected to. A lot of runners at this point might be hitting the wall. If you are new to the sport of marathon running, then the wall is something that you do need to know about. As we look at the Gansu Agricultural University, the premier education points here in Gansu, as you can see, also with a great sports complex as well. Sports very highly followed here in Gansu province. There was, of course, the football team, Gansu Tianma, not anymore, but did very well. So you can just see there, as you look down, the gap now between the top two and the rest in that pack. But I was just talking about the wall. Well, it's when runners have pushed themselves too far in the first half, usually, but it can happen at any point during the race, and it's where your body runs out of salt, ATP, and glycogen, and when that happens, your muscles start seizing up, and when they start seizing up, it's very akin to heat stroke. You essentially collapse. It can be a very dangerous situation when you have been running on minimum amounts of food and energy. Most of these guys would have been loading up on carbs the night before, carb loading for today, probably having an early dinner about 6, and then they'll be up at 3, warming up and stretching for this big run. And it's round about now it's gonna really start hitting on them. You can start seeing it on their faces. Well, it has to be said that Din Boucher is looking pretty balanced in his running style right now. What's interesting is he's not actually looking back to find out where everyone is. He's just focusing on that 30-meter stretch just ahead of him, as all good runners should. Good stride length, good cadence of running, shoulders in the right place, and hands swinging very nicely indeed. So this is a strong showing from Bira Dunbashay. And he's now good, I'd have to say at least 20 now, maybe, yeah, 10 meters. And definitely about 30 meters, if not more. Well, let's look at those splits at 20 kilometers. 103.1 for 20 kilometers, not bad at all. That's looking at a 2.7, maybe even a 2.8 if he starts pushing it in the second half. And everybody else now some good 5 seconds behind at least. So things really shaping up in that men's leading group. Some of these runners very happy with their choice of outfit today, as it has caught the attention of our worldwide cameras. Well, Dunbashay is not just, well, I said he hasn't been looking over his shoulder, but he's not just happy with the gap he's already got in front of that group, and there's some very fast runners in that group. He has, in fact, kept getting bigger and bigger. That's a focused run, and, well, there's still a lot to do in the second half of the race, and I have to say, Dunbashay has not pushed himself too far or overstretched himself in any way in the first half, so we can expect him to keep that pace as he moves into the second half. And seeing as how he's already 20-30 meters ahead of the rest of the pack, this could be a dangerous run from Dunbashay, not just for a personal best, but don't forget the course record, which is set 4 years ago at 2:10 on his personal best, is a lot better than that. So there were fears that the course record was going to be broken today, both in the men's and the women's, and finally he looks back over his shoulder and he's going to be very happy with what he sees, because just a constant, and just a quick look at his watch just to make sure he's keeping pace, because that's the other thing about running in isolation. If you run in a group, you have paces around you that are generally running at the same pace. If you start running in isolation, it's very easy to fall off the pace, start shortening your stride, and it really becomes a mental, well, the entire marathon is a mental test, but it becomes more of a mental test. This should be the finish of the half marathon as expected at 1:10. Great performance there. You'd think that 21 kilometers isn't a lot, but you should go run it and then you'll see it still needs a lot of body mechanics. That is the Shenan Yellow River Bridge. Another beautifully designed bridge. As I said, each of the bridges on the Yellow River here at Lanzhou have such incredible designs. They're all meant that way to be different. So every time you do cross the river, it does look a little bit different. That's actually one of my personal favorites, the Shenan Bridge. That's probably the furthest thing away from Bira Dunbashay's mind, which is the other part about running in isolation, because it's very easy when you know you're in the front, you're in know by at least 50 meters, you suddenly start bringing in extra information into your mind, and that, of course, before you know it, will start leading to a loss of focus. Dunbashay, don't forget, wasn't expecting to be this far ahead, I can tell you that. With the likes of Lemonade, Getachew, and Benson, and some of the other runners in there, look at them really far back now. He's definitely put in the best run, and as I said, what's great about his run is that he's essentially running a negative split, and he started that, as you can see there from his splits now, 31, 53 for 10, 47 for 15, and 103 for 20, so kept a nice easy pace for the first half of the marathon. In this second half, he's now picking up the pace a bit, and that seems to have caught the rest of the leading pack by surprise. Still smiles on the faces of that army of runners behind this group, but all eyes on this man from Ethiopia. We'll be checking in with the women's group in just a second, and I'm expecting to see Demise and Fantujima up front. So, quick shot there of the fun runners. I don't like calling them fun runners, I have to admit to you, I have to be honest there. I like to think of them more as healthy runners, because they are out for fun, of course, and as we just heard in the interviews, they are definitely not here for speed. They're definitely here to create and join the atmosphere of the marathon event in China. Marathon events in China do have this exciting buzz around them. And we of course started very early today, and even at 5 o'clock in the morning, those guys were already lined up at the start line. That's some 2 hours before the start of the race. That's how important the Lanzhou International Marathon is, and that's how big the distance is now between Din Boucher and an extremely fast group of runners. Now, I did say roughly 10 kilometers ago that I was expecting that leading pack, it was too big, having 13 runners in there, to break apart. But in all honesty, I was expecting that break to be maybe 4 very fast runners and about 9 lesser runners. I didn't expect one runner to break apart so dramatically, really. And it will only have to wait and see whether it has been an incremental increase of pace from Bira, or it has been an incremental decrease of pace from the rest of them. As you can see, they're all still absolutely together. So whether this sudden burst of pace is going to affect Bira at the business part of the race. As I said, two parts, 21 kilometer, 35 kilometer. Those are the two real litmus points, the times of the race that starts defining what's going to happen. That last, and if you of course look at the world record set by Eliud Kipchoge, perfect example. Last 10 kilometers kept running faster and faster and faster until he broke that record, and that record still of course untouched, and it might be untouched for a while. I'm not saying of course Din Boucher is already way off that record, but he is still in contention for the course record. That might be exactly what he's looking for. Of course, the other thing he's going to be looking for is prize money. And prize money, there is another debate going on about how there's a lot of people, a lot of runners these days that don't actually take part in track events anymore. 15,000 meters, 10,000 meters, 5,000 meters, because literally there's no earning potential in it. It's much easier these days to get onto the road and immediately start getting into and getting used to the classic 42.195 distance. That is probably the heaviest equipment I've seen on a marathon run, and credit to that man for carrying it so far. I wonder if he's going to drop out at some point. Well, at 1:15, and it looks like to be a major turning point here. So the half marathon now has already been won. The health run has been finished. The family run has been finished. That's all about these guys. And look at the gap now. Well, Din Boucher has already made the turn. You look at that. That has to be at least 70 to 80 meters from that height, I would have thought. So he's really pushing on, and that is a beautiful shot, which I'm sure he's going to. He looks over his shoulder, and now for the first time, he sees absolutely nobody. That's got to be a very good sign for him. The rest of them, well, they seem to be breaking up into 2 packs as well, with second and third maybe forming their own little running group, and then around the turning point, there's about, well, maybe about another 10 of those. Bira Siboku, Din Boucher out front here at the 2019 Lanzhou International Marathon, and in some style, I might add. And still looking very competent to do it. So there were some fears of some theories, I should say, of a blanket finish, having so many fast runners. Doesn't look like that's going to happen now.
对，因为蓝马我是今年第3年参与了吧，然后这次也是带领咱们那个甘肃省内的这些残友，大概有27、8个人，所以说非常高兴，还有机会再来参与蓝马。
今年2019年是我们第一次 在赛道上遇见您哈。
对对对对。
所以这是我们共和国骑士滑蛋的一个这个时代。
对对对。
所以
要那个，今天我特地带着咱们那个红旗。
所以对中国的以奔跑的方式来向祖国祝福。
对，那个庆祝咱们那个70周年，非常高兴。
加油！加油！
谢谢，谢谢董老师，谢谢，加油，老马加油。
And you can see there, once again, the spirit of those runners. Having a quick chat with our on-track, on-road reporter, Gong Rina. Here's another one of those beautiful bridges. As I said, this one, one of my personal favorites, the Shenan Yellow Bridge, from a different view. So the helicopter just rises above it. Out in isolation at 24.79 kilometers, 1 hour 18. And based on that 20 kilometer split, if he keeps this pace up, could still hit a 2:08 or a 2:09. That's Wang Yusheng, the men's chaser. As Vera looks behind him, he's just made the turn point, so he's just a little bit way behind that leading group. But still rock solid style from Guan Yusheng. Some really great runners in China. Guan Dongguojian, another solid runner. And of course in the women's field, Xi Sheng, Zhao Anjing, who's actually running today. A lot of excitement and buzz here. Now running back the other side, well over half the course done, and there's another one of those traditional performances. It's always a great thing when you do come to a Chinese marathon, you do see some of these cultural performances. There's one thing that China is adamant about doing. It's about making sure that ancient traditional cultures will be living on through this century and beyond. There's a lot of places in the city that are absolutely dedicated to it. You know exactly how important it is as well. Back with the men's pack, and it's still Bira and Boucher. And it looks like that group has maybe caught up a little bit, but I wouldn't stick my neck out that far, I'll tell you that. Doesn't have to be so efficient on the refreshment stops anymore because he has such a lead. It really is a case of an insurmountable lead at this stage of the race. If you have been running at that pace, you cannot suddenly break into a sprint as you'd think, because if you did, then that could lead to cramps and stitches and all sorts of really unfortunate problems that will effectively stop your run. So you have to incrementally start getting faster, pushing yourself into that gap. And so far, it doesn't look like that's going to be happening for that chasing pack. That was a great shot just then, as you did actually just see behind that pack how far away Wang Yusheng is. This really is a great performance. There he is. You always see him quite close up, but just on that one shot you can see he was probably about 50 meters back from the chasing group. You can tell he's definitely beginning to feel it now, but still powering through. And that's the added advantage of having a good running style, because when things do get tough, you can rely on that running style to still get you a pretty decent time. A running style that doesn't include waving, of course, or carrying phones. So that's another look back, and it looks like that pack behind Boucher has now exploded at 25 kilometers, because it's definitely now looking like a group of about 6 behind Boucher, and then after that, by the looks of it, a good 4 or 5 runners that are now, there you go, you can see them, and I think that might be Mwangi is one of them, that are just really losing pace on the pack now, and you can see that their running styles are all getting a little bit more out of control, a little bit more lax compared to our front man and the chasing pack. Well, this is an interesting development. This is a significant development. And once again, it's in that business end of the marathon from 26 kilometers onwards. I would expect to see that stretch even more. And it'll be interesting to see what that second pack of runners can do. And obviously whether Dembouche can keep this pace. I wonder if that lead, that looks certainly a lot more closer now than it did. For a second I thought it was actually Guan Yusheng that was hanging back, but as you can see, it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of that pack have now broken down. Oh, this is great stuff from Bira. Good foot landings as well, very important. So Bira Saboka, 2:08.51 is his personal best. That's still going to be enough to break the course record. If he can make it, of course. Benson also in a 2:08.08. Mike Lutai, 2:09. So really a very competent, skilled group of racers here. And as we now look back at the women's group, this is going to be interesting because I want to see that fight between Worknesh and Fantujima, if it's on. Here they are. This should be the turning point for them, if I'm right. Yep, it is indeed. So an important part, turning point. And this will now see them heading back on the opposing side of the bank. River. And from above, that group is still looking pretty tight, has to be said. And that's really what the men's group should have looked like when they came through there, but that was really the part where Bira Boucher just powered through. And at one point, looked around, couldn't even see anyone. Mise now up at the front. Durgo just behind her. It looks like Fantujima's at the back of that pack. Mariam on the other side. That means that Worknesh should be there in that burgundy top. Yes. So Worknesh just staying off the back of these three front runners. Now, again, Fantujima was in this exact position at the Wuhan Marathon and just waited until the last 5 kilometers, if not to make a move. Fatuma Durgo is credited at the 20-kilometer split. As you can see, Fantujima there is 1.65 seconds. Still not easy to conquer. Anything, any time split or difference is hard to conquer in a marathon, but it's doable. And maybe if we went to about 3 or 4 seconds, 5 seconds, you'd need the runner in front of you to start really experiencing some problems. But if it's 1.65, that could lead to a very tight finish at the end. We've seen some very tight finishes in some of the marathons this year in the women's category, women's full marathon category, I should say. Both sides of the road leading up to the turning point. Remember, just the full marathon is now on the other side of that road. So a little bit more empty. Again, Demise looking very strong actually up at the front. Pretty much the exact same body carriage that we saw 15 kilometers ago. And if you look just next to her, at looks like Worknesh actually, looking a little bit more labored. They're beginning to feel it, for sure. In fact, that was actually Gutani Shone that's looking a little bit more labored now. That's Zhao Anjing. Looking back here, that is Gutani Shone Imana. Now, I said that she was struggling about 5 kilometers ago. She's now looking like she really is. Not too critical, but definitely doesn't look like she could push for the front at this pace, and looks like she's just keeping an eye on herself. It's definitely, I've already seen her just check herself. Antujima should be on the left side at the back. Yep, I can see her, there you go, right through the blue top at the back. There's Zhao Anjing. So Zhao Anjing and Huan Yusheng really flying the flag for China here today. Now that is going to be a huge difference in terms of feeling for them. Direct sunlight hitting the runners for the first time. Not the easiest of situations up at altitude. You've got very thin air, lack of humidity, and on top of that you've got this direct heat that forces your body into a different cooling system. So definitely even more important now to keep hydrated, get those hydration stops sorted. 1.5 hours into the race. And as we close in on 9 o'clock in the morning, that's why that sun has suddenly risen. A lot of these runners would have expected a little bit of it, but trust me, it is not easy. That happens. That's of course why the Dubai Marathon is started so early these days. Some 6 a.m. start for the elites, because the sun just gets so hot there. And this year, in fact, it actually came up with about 5 minutes left in the race. It didn't really make that much of a difference, but here, this is definitely going to be making a difference. So immediately, rehydration stops, and going to be taking on a lot of water. Demise, the good style there while drinking. You'd be amazed at how much time you can save if you have an efficient system of picking up hydration and refreshments. The hydration, of course, would be water bottles, and the refreshments, well, usually these guys like to go for gel packs, energy gel packs. Easier to consume and easier to break down into fast energy, because that's what they want. They want to get into fast energy burns for today. It's pretty incredible, the physical endurance that the body has to go through in a marathon, and it's not surprising that a lot of elite runners have at least a week or two to really rest and recover after each marathon. It's almost a superhuman effort to run back-to-back marathons because of the power that it does exert on the body. That's the ancestor garden of Chinese humanities. It's another beautiful monument, sculpture, as I said, paying tribute to traditional times and really enforcing them in modern culture. That's Regasa Nagawa. It seems so long ago now that they were fighting for the lead in the opening 5 kilometers. Now firmly into that front pack. They've actually caught Dinbouche. Now that's what I was afraid of with such a large distance. There's Dinbouche. We all know exactly how far ahead he was. Look at the split. He was 25 seconds ahead. But not anymore. Now he's running with some very fast runners indeed. Well, that's how quickly things can change in the second half of a marathon. Unbelievable. I wouldn't be surprised if these guys actually blasted past Dinbouche. Maybe it was a refreshment stop. Maybe it was, you know, lack of pace. But he is now caught up with the pack again. So it was a good run for him to be out front for that long, but just couldn't maintain the pace. It's Guan Yusheng still chasing that men's leading pack. This, another one of those famous bridges over the Yellow River. And as you can see, runners are still getting across the Yintan Yellow River Bridge. That is at the roughly 17-kilometer mark, so about 12 kilometers back from here. Boucher now up with Kimutai. Justice Kimutai, Nagasa, Nagawa also in that group that's just joined him. I wonder which of these guys. It just looks like someone at the back of that group is having a lot of problems. Should be Zelalem Bacha Regasa by the looks of it, or it might be Afterwork Mesfin. Difference as opposed to the bib numbers. I thought it was myself, Zelalem, but just pulled up a little bit on the hip, and now look, you can see the grimace on the face as well. He's definitely not in prime running optimal carriage at the moment. Boucher looks behind him again. It's the Lanzhou Wetland Park. It's opposite from White Pagoda Park. And that is one of the eco centers of the city, and as you can see, lots of greenery. You get a lot of species of birds and general fauna nesting in these grounds, but also some wonderful architecture as well to have a look at. I'm sure some of these runners, maybe tomorrow, the day after, will check it out. Refreshment there from Justice Kimutai. There's Nagawa, Nagasa. Boucher just pushing himself to the front again, but I don't know if that massive lead that he had some 4 or 5 kilometers ago was, as I said, due to an incremental increase of speed from him or an incremental decrease of speed from them. Either way, we're going to see the next half an hour, because that is going to dictate how much energy these guys have in that last stretch. 35 kilometers to 42 kilometers, that's when things get really, really tough on the body. It's when you really start to feel it as well. Not just the distance, but also how you have prepared yourself for the day. Forehead. Certainly looks now that Afterwork Mesfin at the back of that group is struggling a little bit. 109 bib just behind Regasa, and Kimutai looks like he's actually favoring his left hip, so it might be a hip problem, but you can usually tell if there's a serious problem in terms of muscles from facial expressions and how the body gait changes. Let's hope that he can make it to the end. Guan Yusheng now running in direct sunlight. He's going to feel that too. Mei can feel a little bit lucky that the first half of this race, and maybe a bit more actually, was overcast and under clouds. So at the 30-kilometer split, it's actually Justice Kimotai that's now put up front again, just about less than a second in that first group. And then, as you can see, as you go back, there's Limine Getachew, some 20 seconds off the pace. So he's one of those guys behind now in that single file line. No real impact from Getachew this today. Maybe it was a tough race for him, but we never really saw him at the front of that pack either. And now that he's dropping off, can't really see him getting back into it. Garcep, Mutai, and Boucher generally up front. 38 on the clock. Sun really beating down now. And that is the Source of Life statue. A monument statue with its own performance, as you can see right next to it. Well, that looks like Tajichuan. It is Tajichuan. The Source of Life statue, another one, much like the Mother and Boy statue, really about the essence of the Yellow River in terms of the life that it's brought to this area for thousands of years now. Something that must never be forgotten. And there still, even at 31 kilometers, the Lanzhou International Marathon fans lining the streets. So it looks like Justice Kimotai has now taken real control of that pack. And showing with a quick splash of water. Still resilient and resolute running style. That's what he has, and you've seen it. The only thing we've really seen is slightly heavier breathing that you'd expect, but really head and shoulders absolutely perfect. One of the strongest runners in China, and deservedly so. Even though he has put in a very solid run, as you can see, these guys have all stayed ahead of him. Still a little bit in shock that Biro Dinboucher has managed or allowed this second pack to catch up with him. He's now, as you can see, settling into the middle of that pack, so maybe he prefers having paces around him, going for the final burst, which should be coming up soon. Checking out the foot landings of this front pack, all still looking very solid. You really want to know, these guys, if they're still at world record pace, should be talking about 180 footfalls a minute. I think they are definitely off that now. 141, 31 kilometers is 101 minutes. 31 kilometers, so still lightning fast pace really, and that course record is looking like it might just fall. That is the big story for today. And 8 of those runners with personal bests that could shatter this course record that stood for 4 years now. Justice Kimotai. So definitely a negative split from him. A pretty strong one by the looks of it. He's looking very pepped up, very energetic. Checking over his shoulders. This was obviously his strategy, because now he's making his move. Dinboucher's moved to the back of that pack. Such a strong leader for a while, and we really did wonder whether that gap could be could be pulled up, but it was obviously based on the pace from Kimutai and Regassa now. It was obviously a slowdown from Dinbouche that allowed them back into it. Just too much pace from him. Maybe he thought he could go the whole distance, but it didn't quite happen for him. Yellow River now picking up some of the sunlight, early morning sunlight. And you can just see in the corner of your screen by the timing clock that it is still a little bit overcast in places, but not here. This is direct sunlight that's going to be hitting them at a pretty low angle as well. And they're running into it, so they're going to be feeling that. Nobody would wish to run in direct sunlight. And that's exactly why, as you can see, there's water pads to cool the skin. The sun is merciless and can still affect you exactly the same way whether you're standing up or you're moving. These guys have been constantly moving for an hour and 45 now, so it is so important to keep that level of moisture in the body, whether it's on the skin or inside. You are going to finish this. Now, this is turning into a very interesting pack as two more have dropped off now. Dinbouche, to his credit, has managed to stay with the top 5, and this could be the move. Remember, I did say from 35 kilometers on, that's when things are going to get very interesting. They're approaching 35 now. And I'm going to guess, based on what we've seen so far, that at 35, we're going to get 3 separate groups from that men's leading pack. It already looked like it was breaking up, so it's not much of a premonition. Some of the other runners now in that blazing sunlight. And as you can see, they've got their sun visors. Not really going to make that much of a difference. These guys, no sun visors, as it would lead to an aerodynamic deficiency, I'm guessing. Absolutely perfect. That looks like too much of a coincidence for all these boats to be turning at once. Assuming that is a race of itself is going on. That turning point of it. There's so many activities that are happening today. People do make this day in June a very big day for Lanzhou as a city and as a populace. Oh, it's Kimutai and Nagawa now breaking up front. Big shout going out to Nagawa. Hasn't really been one of the big names today, but has always been there or thereabouts. Dinbouche now with a pretty strong second run. Now I'm beginning to wonder as to whether that loss of his lead was actually down to maybe a refreshment stop that we didn't see, because he did lose a lot. He's definitely getting a second win now. Here's the women's leading group. Still Demise up front. Woknesh just behind her. That's Imana as well. I can see Bantujima right in the middle of that pack. Durgo has now moved back as well. So this is interesting simply because at the 30-kilometer split, they should be inseparable. They've stayed as a group, using these men's competitors as paces almost. That's what Nishidesa now in second behind Demise. Antujima has moved up into what looks like fourth. That's Jianjing just behind that pack. Imana looks like she may have worked off that niggle, and she's now up into second. Westnorthern just right next to it. Demise up front. That's our top three now, and it looks like they might be separating as well. Fantujima just behind them. Amazing shots. And the army of runners behind them. Quite a distance behind them, of course, as you'd expect. It really is a well-organized course, very well laid out. I'm sure these elite runners appreciate it as well. That is Fantujima, number 314. There's Westnorthern and Demise all coming through the 30-kilometer refreshment station. You can be pretty sure that in this direct sunlight, they're not going to miss any of them. Sifan Demise is definitely going to be coming up on the front of those splits. Imana in second, and I'm guessing Westnorthern in third. Just behind that, Nebe looking a little bit labored, but still nothing too critical. Fantujima now right behind Imana. And a big hello. It's not just watching the race, it's actually pushing the runners on as well. So 12 kilometers left now. And definitely, if you've settled into your rhythm, you're hoping that 12 kilometers, remember, will be under sunlight. It's going to pass without major incident. Another great shot at one of the mountain parks. Go to Mountain Park is also another one of the famous attractions here in Lanzhou. It really is split into those two different areas. Now that is the men's and women's marathon. And as predicted, the top three have moved away, and it is Justice Kumatai with the perfect strategy today. Then Boucher looks like he's now fallen behind, and he now knows what it looks like to be that distance back. And I don't know, even if after the second burst is coming back, so it is Igasa, Kimutai, and believe it or not, that is actually Mesfin, who I said looked like he was having some trouble. Well, must have worked off that little niggle, because he's now in third. Afterwork Mesfin, Aldo Tenense. And these are currently the top three. Are they on course for breaking the course record? Wait and see. Should do. These guys setting their own record on the other side of the street. And they are shouting on the leaders. Justice Kimutai, much faster second now. Look at the way that men's pack is now spread out exactly at 35 kilometers. That's what we were expecting, but we had no idea who the three would be up at the front. And I think that would probably be a bit surprising to a few. See Justice Kumatai, Igasa, and Mesfin as the top three. That means, of course, that Boucher has now moved back. And it's turning into a beautiful day here in Lanzhou City as the helicopter makes its way back, and we stay with the men's leading group. Now looking back down the road, That is, in fact, Boucher is now in 6th by the looks of it. Some good 50 meters back at least. Justice Kimutai. Kenyan, of course, look at those splits there, 31, 47, 103, 119, 134, 150. That's pretty stable pace. So even though there is a massive Ethiopian contingent here, it looks like it's going to be one of the very few Kenyans that might do this. A lot of nations have taken part today: Bahrain, Ethiopia, Kenya, Lesotho, Japan and China. There are the splits, as you can see. Now 30 seconds ahead, and Bira Dinbouche will have 20 seconds back now. Just too much effort he put on in that wonderful breakaway at the turning point, where he could look around and literally not see anybody else. Well, he's now going to be finishing out of the top 5 for sure, and we just hope he can make it a decent enough time for him. Now, Mesfin seems to have dropped off a little bit. Just trying to make out where those health runners are. So this would be Nagasa with Justice Kimutai, and he's going to know, as you can see Mesfin off on the side of your screen, struggling a bit more. I don't know if he's going to be caught by any of the other runners behind him. That's what happens when you do have a course that loops back on itself. What better thing to do while you're having a run than to actually film the people winning it. That is a massive distance now between them on either side of the road. And of course some you can still see making their way across the bridge as well. Now that's right at the start of the course. 36 kilometers, and it looks like it's going to be a big finish here between these two. Kimutai just trying to put a bit more distance between himself and Nagaso. But Nagasa is having absolutely none of it. We've had so many leaders in that group: Nagawo, Mwangi, Sheng has been trailing them. So let's put this into a bit of perspective here as they approach the 37-kilometer mark. Got a Kenyan leading an Ethiopian at the front. That's no surprise, I guess. Looking at their personal bests, a 2:09.23 for Nagasa in Barcelona. And a 2:10 flat for Kimutai in Milan in 2018 last year. So 2:09, 2:10. 2:10 up front, 2:09 just behind him. Both of those would qualify. 2:10 flat is better than 2:10.31, so just cut the course record. Bit of strain finally beginning to show on Guan Yusheng's face. Still, the body's kind of in automatic run mode, and he's definitely feeling it. That's what I mean about how you can see on the facial expressions when they're very confident at the beginning of the race, and when things start to get a little bit dicey near the end. 36.81 kilometers, that distance still not enough for Justice Kimutai to win this without thought, should we say. Nagasa just behind him. essentially drafting. Of course, drafting a little bit different when you're not in a vehicle, but it still does make a difference, especially into a headwind. If you can just stay behind the leader, and that's what he's doing now. It's got absolutely nothing to do with the position of the sun or anything else, but he's keeping exactly behind Kimutai, trying to get whatever advantage he can from the drafting. And it's going to be very slight indeed. Oh, how about that for a beautiful place, the Dragon Park in Lanzhou. Really, I mean, that's, you don't have to say anything. That's such a beautiful fountain structure anyway. If I was running it, I would get distracted by that, I have to say. Beautiful stuff. So many attractions in Lanzhou. And if you do come here on one weekend in June, there's even more attractions in Lanzhou. And this other side, this opposing side of the Yellow River, has so many attractions to it. That's the second half of Dragon Park. That beautiful dragon statue. Again, harking back to some of the many dynasties that have set up here. In fact, they didn't really set up here. They essentially were here. Simple as that. The oldest civilizations in the world, and therefore have some very, very old stories as well. Get to some of the biggest cities around, but up here in North China, and it starts to get a little bit more mountainous, and of course the Gobi Desert not too far away at all either. In fact, a little bit of it actually tipping into Gansu. There's some very special attractions out here. Now this is interesting, as Nagase is now pulled level, as we look at another wushu performance. Actually looks more like a Tai Chi performance under the dragon statue. Well, just as we cut back, Nagase has again taken his position behind Kimutai, but for a while it looked like he was going to challenge. It's 38 kilometers, so now would be the time to do it. Justice continuously looking over his shoulder, and if he does that too much, that is going to lead to a problem. Because I can tell you one thing, Nagase is not going to be fading at any point soon. So, but a sudden burst there from Kimutai. Justice Kipkogi Kimutai. At the start of the race, I did actually think when I saw his name on the runners entry list, there was Andrew Ben Kimutai, who's also, as I said, shown up very well. But there is no relation, as I know, between both of them. It's just a common name in Kenya. But it is good to see those two mammoth nations in marathon. And now suddenly there's a break. Justice Kimutai looks like he may have actually outlasted that fight. It was a great fight from Nagase, but I think he's willing to fall away for second now. He knows he's well ahead of third. And could this be the perfect strategy from Justice Kimutai? Sat in the middle of the pack for at least the first 15 kilometers. Really didn't look like a threat at all, but literally at the 21 kilometer mark, turned on the jets and has outlasted the rest. And he's now got about 4 kilometers left. And you'd have to say he's looking very strong indeed. Good running form, arms still very high, the body carriage looking very stable, the foot landings looking very secure, and of course no outward looks of pain grimacing on the face. He looks like he's in good condition. Look at them both now aiming for the shade under the trees. If they can, that's what they'd rather do. And they're going to be very happy with that. Nobody's going to be running on that side of the road, I can tell you that. And that is just proof of the effect of that sunlight that they've picked to run in the shade. It's not uncommon to see that, of course. We'll be very happy with these high trees on the side of this road. And look at the people as we get closer to the start line. That's the end of the Zhongshan Iron Bridge, so that's their second passing of that. There it is. Great shot from almost street level. Probably 10 foot up, I would have thought. 12 foot up. That camera is, of course, looking down on these guys. So it's from the truck motos. And once again, just a big shout out to all the broadcast and logistical staff, not just the LOC, of course, for setting up such an incredible marathon again, but also the broadcast staff for just being absolutely on point. The helis and the motos and the vans, really, really fantastic organization around here. And of course, the duty officers, the volunteers, thousands of volunteers that have turned up for this weekend. There they are. We never really get a chance to thank them for their fantastic efforts. And that's a very welcome water spray for Kimutai and Nagase. That's going to make them feel a little bit better for this last 3 kilometers, but I have to say that's going to dry off pretty quickly in this arid environment. Just behind them, you can see one of those motorbikes has been following these guys right from the start of the race. Coming into the business end now, 3 kilometers left, and it looks like Justice Kimutai is well on his way to what would be a famous win for him. That is the exact dates for that great celebration this year in the nation of China, 1949 to 2019. Now there's Gizachu Nagase, who's now become the chaser, even though he was just about a kilometer away in the leading pack of 2. That pack, remember, started as a pack of 13, and now we have the attrition down to what should be our leader. I can't see Justice Kimutai making a mistake from here at 40 kilometers after executing such a perfect strategy at all points throughout this marathon. And that's what it was strategy. But it looks like Nagase, his closest rival, is now beginning to drop off the pace. Great stretch of shade under the bridge for Kimutai. He's looking a tiny bit more labored now in his running style. But I don't think it's going to be enough of a drop-off. Again, facing the same situation that Dinbushe had, the only other person to face that situation today, suddenly running in isolation, not having a pacer, be it a rival or a compatriot around you. And it's such a critical part of the race as well. Well, as you can see, just on the amount of footfalls, strides are being taken, Kimutai is outpacing Nagase fully. So there's no way now Nagase is going to be catching him. As you can see just behind him, that looks like Mesfin, still in third. There is, of course, one last split that we're going to look at. It's pretty much a formality now, I would have thought, but the 40-kilometer split should be coming up. Look at that gap between them now. Nagase are a good 60, maybe 70 meters back. There's the 40-kilometer refreshment spot. They're over the timing pad. That was back there. You can just see that timing pad. Have to run over the timing pads with your transponders, or else you ain't going to get a split time. It's as simple as that. I might also point out that it's illegal to not run over a timing pad, so probably something you want to make sure you get right. You'd be surprised at things that people can forget when they have been long distance running, whether they should stop for water or not. There's a great deal of confusion in the mind when you put your body through this much pressure. But when it comes to Kenyan and Ethiopian runners, they have learnt the classic distance so well that they have elevated themselves as nations above everyone else. It's not just about the extra aero engine or the VO2 max capacity that they have. There's the split at 40 kilometers, 2:05.16 for Justice Kimutai and Nagase in second, and as I thought, Mesfin in third. Now remember, it's a 2:10 flat best for Kimutai. And he's got 2 kilometers left to do it, so, well, essentially 1.5. It looks like the course record is going to be beaten today. 2:10.10 set in 2015 by Abena Ayala of Ethiopia. Looks like Kenya and Ethiopia do have this long-standing rivalry, of course. Looks like Kenya is about to rip this record straight out of Ethiopia's war chest. Could do it. It's going to be tough. 7:40, 2:10.10. We're going to have to really wait for this last kilometer to see whether he can up the pace. Uphill stretch here, not as easy as you'd think. And then, of course, in the stages of marathon running, you do get this final burst of energy when you know you were this close to the end. Again, fantastic patience and pace being set by not just the runners, but by the guys filming them as well. Well done. Fantastic effort. There they are. Saw them leaving on my commentary box this morning at roughly 5 o'clock in the morning. So just to get in position in front of the line, they've had a very big day. So vital to getting shots like this. So 41 kilometers about to be hit, 2:08.47. He's going to have to push himself if he's going to make that 2:10.10, because that's going to call for a 2 minute, or less than that even. Last kilometer, I don't think it's going to happen. We might end up with a 2:11 or 2:12. He'll still be happy with that. It won't be his personal best. His personal best is a 2:10 flat. Maybe it was the direct sunlight and the hotter part of the second half of this marathon that has led to a slowdown of some sorts, or even the competition, because he really only left the rest of the pack a couple of kilometers ago. But it doesn't matter, because Justice Kimutai is closing in on the end. Just a few more paces now. Now, the prize money, well, it's about 40,000 USD if you can get a sub 209. 209.30, in fact, that's in the men's. And it's a sub 226 for the women's. And for the Chinese runners, around about 50,000 won in men's and women's if you can run a sub 215 or sub 230. I have to say, though, that from the runners that I've met and the runners that I've watched, hardly any of them are really interested in the amount of money. They're more interested in being a 210 or a 29 or a 28 person known in the marathon running scene. And right now, Andrew Ben Kimutai has already made himself a 210 man. 210.35 means the course record lasts for another year, but I wonder for how many more years. With the increasing speed of some of these athletes, it was a hot day today, and as the women's reigning champion, or the reigning course record champion, said, it was very, very tough. That's Rael Chiara. It was very, very tough to break course records here. We did think it was going to happen. It hasn't happened. Said a 2:11 or a 2:12, and that's what it's looking like now. And there are our three runners. Good spacing between them. Good final burst from Justice Kimutai, who has surprised many today, has to be said. Absolutely nothing from Lamine Getachew. Absolutely nothing from Benson Surey from Bahrain. Looks like it is going to be within the 2:12. And if you remember that Kelkile Gazagan won last year in a 2:11, well, it is actually a 2:11.51 in the end. Here is Nagasa in second, making it nice and easy with a 2:12.06. And that should mean that Mesfin, there he is coming through for third spot. and he should also make it in a 2:12. So 1 2:11 and 2 2:12s. Actually, that's a great. He can probably hardly even lift that arm, but fantastic. Looked like he was having some problems halfway through the race with a hip, but I think he's probably worked it off and run it off. And that should be another 2:12 for Mesfin. Those are our first three. This one's probably going to be definitely our top Chinese runner. Guan Yusheng has been essentially for the whole race. And getting a lot of support from his compatriots on the other side of the road and the fans at the side. One last refreshment. That means he's just past the 40-kilometer mark. 2 kilometers left means that 2:15, well, probably going to be a bit tough for Guan Yusheng. I reckon most probably going to be heading for 2:16 or 2:17. Still pretty good in conditions like this. Let's not forget, it has been a very hot second half of the 2019 Lanzhou International Marathon, and these runners probably didn't expect that with the amount of cloud cover we had at the start of the race. Guan Yusheng, another good result to add to his string of results that he's clocked up over the years and has defined him as one of the best Chinese runners. Listen to all that encouragement from all the fans at the side of the road. Already qualified for the World Championships in October. So he's going to be able to put himself up against the best. Now, of course, the focus turns to the women's race, and we've seen some great finishes this year, which have started exactly like this. I can tell you that now. 4 ladies. Now, in the Wuhan Marathon, Fan Tujima was in this exact position with 3 other competitors, and she came through and won on the last 2 corners, finishing up with a 2:28. Now, she is in that. In fact, all of the front runners have now basically been just essentially scythed off. You've got Worknesh Edessa here on the right. You've got Fan Tujima in the blue at the back there. You've got Imana up at the front, who was looking like she was having troubles beforehand, but seems to be okay with it. Is at the front. Here's the turning point for, well, that's quite a way back now. And there's Demise, who actually had to skip a step there. Not ideal when you're looking for a good result. Not really for timing, but skipping step, of course, could lead to all sorts of muscles and ankle pull-ups, suddenly having to get out of the way. It was actually, by the looks of it, Imana that was in her way. And now, while we saw a pretty steady finish from the 3 men, Justice Kimutai Nagasa and Mesfin with a 2:11, 2:12, and 2:12, it looks like we might just get a very close finish indeed in the women's class. Guan Yusheng looking a little bit strained now, but has been running in isolation, been running his own race for most of this marathon. And only now you can see that strong, resolute running style beginning to break down slightly. And we are not going to fault him for that, as if you can keep a solid pace for close to 35, 36 kilometers of a 42-kilometer race, you just see his legs are now moving a little bit, say, not as fluidly as they did before, and the shoulders now beginning to droop a little, a tiny bit. But he's allowed to pull back 5%, really finish this race at 90% output because he has absolutely nobody else threatening him. 2:16 means he's missed that prize money cutoff. But as I said, all the runners, especially the Chinese runners, it really isn't about the money. It's about times, it's about the speed, it's about the pace. And he has consistently delivered that, all 3 of them, pretty much every marathon that he's been in. I'm still guessing, based on, we didn't see her in that leading pack of women, that Zhao Anjing is most probably, and say that way, the leading woman in the Chinese runners category. This looks like the last stretch. That looks... He's just gone past the start line of the health run. And he's definitely feeling the strain now. But as I said, once you focus yourself, and he's done a very good job running in isolation to keep this pace up. The biggest hindrance for all these runners has been the sun. You can see the heat haze now just around him. That's how hot the ambient temperature is as we approach 10 o'clock in the morning. Shouldn't make that much more of a difference. Possibly a 2:19 finish. This looks like the final stretch, so it might even be 2:18.50 if you can. Still keep it within 2:18. Still a sizable, there he is. A very good run considering the conditions. He's looking visibly happier now. Liu Sheng comes through with a it should be a 2:18.58, I would have thought, based on where we were as he finished. And here is that women's group. As I said, Zhao Anjing now and the rest of the ladies have dropped off that group. It was a group of 6. Fantujima is looking like this might be a little bit too much for her. She's dropped back now, and it is Worknesh and Imana who are up at the front. The Mise, most probably I'd say the outsider from that group. All 3 of the others big winners, or big top 3 finishers for sure. All looking in pretty good form, and this at 38 kilometers, so remember they're looking to beat a 2:31.22 record set by Kenya's Rael Kiara, who said this week famously, and I'm going to quote her again, "I have to warn the pretenders to the throne, it will take more energy from them to equal or break my course record." That's pretty much a challenge that we set up. And so far, it's looking pretty good. 2:31.22, they've got 4 kilometers to go, and they have 11 minutes to do it. So it's going to be tight. But it looks like Worknesh Edessa, who had such a flying run in Dubai at the start of the year, has found that extra gear. Fantujima has also found an extra gear and has moved up into 2nd. Imana has moved down to 3rd. The Mise is in 4th. And it looks now that it's going to be that big battle that I was hoping for right at the start of the race. Fantujima, the winner of the Wuhan Marathon, against Worknesh Edessa, the winner of the Dubai Marathon. Both of them at 39 kilometers. Let's see who's got the energy to outlast the other. And I did say that Imana looked like she was in trouble. That's not the way. Worknesh Edessa, the Mesa, such a name these days, improved her personal best by nearly 3 minutes to 2:21 in Dubai in January. That made her, of course, the fastest woman on the list here. And marathon debut in 2015, only 26 years old, but has never finished outside of the top 3 in any marathon that she's contested, which is an unbelievable reliability stat. Even her slowest was a 2:31.06, and that is still better than Chiara's Lanzhou record. So that record is looking in dire straits right now, as Worknesh has clearly taken the lead. Fantujima is in 2nd, as you can see there. 31-year-old Fantujima. As I said, won the Wuhan Marathon with a 2:28. Her personal best was also set in Dubai some 4 years ago. That was a 2:26. And Imana, of course, 27, also from Ethiopia. She has won there she is, the Ottawa and Seoul marathons, and has a career best of 2:23.32 in Houston. That's incredible. And a 2:24 in Seville in February as well. That's not going to help her today, but I now have a funny feeling that Worknesh Idessa is going to be picking up not just the win here in the women's category, but also by some distance the course record. And that means that today we've seen in the men's contingent a Kenyan rip the Ethiopian record from the Ethiopian war chest, and now we're going to see an Ethiopian take the Kenyan course record in the women's category. So a nice, keenly contested Lanzhou International Marathon in 2019 by the Ethiopians and Kenyan contingents. That is another one of the beautiful sights in Lanzhou. So you can see the performances, the Tai Chi performances happening on either side of it as well. Very much a situation of some of the other runners you can see in the back of your screen would stop, of course, and have a look at those. You don't necessarily need to be running. You can stop and have a look at these truly astounding and quite massive. I mean, I think the scale of these monuments and historical places that you see on the screen really doesn't match up. You really have to drive past them or be there. So it's the 40-kilometer refreshment stop, I should say, for Worknesh Idessa, who's now powered into that final gear. Lanzhou absolutely nowhere to be seen. Has a little look behind her, doesn't need to be honest. 2:24 on the clock, 2 kilometers left to go. If she's running a 3-minute race, well, elite pace, we should say, that's the usual elite pace, then she will break that 2:31 course record as we stand now. But for that, you have to run 2 more 3-minute kilometers. Seems strong, shoulders are high, arms are moving well, not carrying any noticeable niggle. Still the runners are pouring across the bridge at other parts of the course. The course does loop itself back, so all points you can get an idea of where they are spread out. Here's the second and third place fight. Imana now fighting with Fantu Jima. Fantu has a little look up and sees that there's nothing she can do to let Imana go past. It looks like it's going to be an Ethiopian 1-2. That might be what Worknesh is actually checking over her shoulder to see. They have been running together, Worknesh and Imana, the whole race right next to each other in the middle of that pack. So I'm sure that they're going to be keeping tabs on each other. Of course, we don't have to keep tabs on Worknesh. You just have to look ahead of you, and that's where she's going to be. At 40, coming up to 41 kilometers now, looking very likely that she's going to run that last kilometer at this pace. Going to be very, very happy with this performance. Look at those split times: 35, 53, 110, 129, 147, 205, 223. Absolute clockwork. Big smile on her face as well. She knows she's into the last, well, it looked like a smile. It might actually just be a heat exhaustion. That's definitely a smile. 41 kilometers, and she has good reason to be. I hope we do get to check back with that fight to see whether Imana and Fantu Jima are still battling it away. I would expect now Imana to have cleared Fantu to be moving into second spot. There they are. And yes, indeed, it's true. 2:31.22 is the course record to beat. And it's looking good right now, looking very good in fact, into the final kilometer at 2:27, and the running style still looking strong. Absolutely direct sunlight on her now, but she's not going to mind because she's so close. Little uphill stretch on a bend as well. This takes a little bit of reworking on the footing. And you can just see Patriot just behind her, maybe some 50-60 meters behind her. He's not catching her, that's for sure. 58.53, the clock times down into the final stretch. I'm expecting a 2:30 max here, and that's going to beat that record by a full minute. Been a good race for her, very economic in her energy, and the same can be said for our men's winner as well, Justice Kimotai, extremely economical with his energy output. Still managed to run that negative split and really speed up. Here is the final. It's definitely going to be a course record broken here, but maybe the first two runners. Rael Chiara is watching this, and somewhere she's thinking to herself, well, she laid down the gauntlet, and it certainly looks like that gauntlet was taken up by all three runners. This might be all three runners breaking that record of 2:31.22. It's stood for 4 years here at one of the biggest marathons in China. This is a very significant moment. Not just to see one. Well, I mean, we're into 2:30 now. It's going to be very close. Chiara out injured today, and therefore could not. And here it is, into the final stretch. That's definitely a smile, and it is a 2:30.19. That's a full minute off the course record. Fantastic performance from Worknesh, who another blinding run. She did it in Dubai, and she's done it here in Lanzhou. I think that's a 2:30.19, but just check the course record because that's what it's going to be. Imana comes in with a 2:30.40. And Fantu Jima gets another top 3 finish at a Chinese marathon and also within the world record. So all of the 3 finishes in the women's race sub course record. Fantastic performance, all of them in that 2:30 minute. Really good performance from them. Here's Zhao Anjing, who's going to be the top finisher in the Chinese runners category. She's had a very, very solid race as well.
我对于我自己今天的表现相当的满意啊，很满意了啊，因为在我赛前的预计我是跑到2小时20分啊，没有想到能打开2分钟吧，将近2分钟的啊，所以今天也是非常的意外吧，意外的收获啊。
今天高手如林啊，特邀选手最好成绩04分多，跟他们这个对抗是一个什么样的战术和心态？
当然我们要明确的认识到，我们跟这个肯尼亚选手黑人选手呢还有一定的差距，但是我们尽量的去缩小这个差距，然后在前面呢尽量的去跟跑，能多跟1公里，多跟1公里。一是学习他们的战术，二是刺激我们自己给我们添加信心吧。再一个，其实今天的国内的高手也是非常的多给我后面的压力也非常大，所以后面跑的也是 非常的用力吧，非常的尽力的去跑啊。
跑在蓝马这样的赛道上哈，是一个什么样的感受？作为一个中国选手，
整个全程都非常的激动，因为观众呢非常热情，就是喊那个加油声把你的脚步声和喘气声都听不到了，甚至跑得忘我了，自我很自我跑的很轻松。
2019蓝马留下非常深刻的印象。
是的，是的希望明年再有所突破吧。好，谢谢，谢谢。
So, great words there from the final winner of the Chinese category. That's Guan Yusheng. And we're just getting ready for the prize award ceremony now as we look at beautiful Lanzhou and some of those sites that we've been seeing. That is the Gansu International Convention and Exhibition Center. Here's some highlights for you. This was what it was like at around about 7 a.m. when the guns went off, and a very sprightly start from absolutely everyone. And this race in the end would really prove to have some great stories in it, not just for all these wonderful people that have turned up. Thousands, tens of thousands of people turned up today in all sorts of fancy dress. And look at that, massive numbers as we've seen for the last 8 years here in the Lanzhou International Marathon. One of the top 3 marathons in China. And as we watched the runners run by, we also got to see some of the famous sights in Lanzhou, but it was all about this elite pack. And look at how big that pack was at 9 kilometers and even at 29 kilometers as well. It was almost 13 runners up front, but that would break down in the end. These are for some of the, and this is what it would look like at 39 kilometers. Kimutai coming through in the end, Kenya snatching back. And Guan Yusheng taking the top Chinese honors in the men's category.
先生们，兰州银行杯2019兰州国际马拉松赛男子组颁奖仪式现在开始。我们有请获奖运动员和颁奖嘉宾登台。The World Marathon Ceremony of Man of Bangkok Lanzhou Cup 2019 Lanzhou International Marathon will now begin. Let's welcome the honored guests and players.
There are 3 winners.
女士们、先生们，获得第3名的选手是阿菲沃克，来自于埃塞俄比亚。The third prize winner is Mr. Afrok from Ethiopia.
So Afawak Mesfin in 3rd spot, didn't make his personal best, came in with a 2:12.
尼格萨，来自于埃塞俄比亚。The second prize winner is Mr. Nikasa from Ethiopia.
Gizachu Nagasa from Ethiopia in 2nd, also with a 2:12.06. And the only man in the field to break 2:11 is Justice Kimutai with a 2:11.51.
我们有请甘肃省副省长张世坚先生为我们的获奖运动员来颁发奖杯。Now let's welcome Mr.
Our VIPs on stage to give out the trophies. Of course, the VIPs from the Chinese Athletic Association, the Gansu Provincial State Bureau, and the Lanzhou Municipal People's Government. 3 entities that have brought you once again a fantastic Lanzhou International Marathon. Faster and faster times, and we'll just have to wait to see if that 2:10.10 gets beaten next year.
接下来，我们有请兰州市委副书记、市长张伟文先生为获奖运动员颁发奖牌。Now let's welcome Mr. 张伟文 to award the medal for our winners.
There are the medals to go with the trophies. Second spot, silver, and the big one, Justice Kimutai. gold at the 2019 Lanzhou International Marathon. Fantastic performance from all three.
银行董事长许建平先生为获奖运动员颁发奖票和花环。
And of course, we can't forget the third part
Let's welcome
of their
Mr. Xu Jianping to award the prize for our winners.
flowers, money. Prize money, of course, not really important to runners. That time would be the 2:11, the 2:12, the 2:12. Still good times considering, as I said, that second half of the race that was very hot indeed. This all helps with funding further runs. And of course, a lot of these guys will be Qatar and again.
有请我们另外两位颁奖嘉宾一起能够来到台前和我们一起合影留念，好吗？有请我们的3位颁奖嘉宾一起来到台前，跟我们的获奖运动员。
Formation of the gold, silver, and bronze names. And that brings us to the end of our broadcast of the 2019 Lanzhou International Marathon. Once again, big shout to all of the logistics, broadcast, and of course the runners themselves, everybody that's turned up here in June. You guys enjoy yourselves, and we'll catch you in Lanzhou next year.
请一旁休息，也再次恭喜我们3位获奖运动员，再次恭喜你们。女士们、先生们、现场的观众朋友们，我们继续关注赛事终点，稍后我们将继续颁奖。
生命的激情汹涌澎湃，火红的玫瑰点燃生命的活力，生命的活力绽放光彩。国际马拉松盛会，让我们相约。 走到一起来，兰州迷人的风景，让我们无比快乐喜开怀。奔跑，奔跑，奔跑，人生就是一场比赛。 奔跑，奔跑，奔跑，岁月匆匆，时不我待。贵在参与，给予对你我一样厚爱。贵在坚持，不惜荆棘，受人崇拜。 生命的激情汹涌澎湃，火红的玫瑰点燃生命的活力，生命的活力绽放光彩。国际马拉松盛会，让我们相约。 走到一起来，兰州
的是兰州银行杯2019兰州国际马拉松女子组的颁奖仪式。首先，让我们用热烈的掌声有请获奖运动员和颁奖嘉宾入场。Now the award announcement ceremony of women in Bangkok Lanzhou Cup 2019 Lanzhou International Marathon will now begin. Now welcome the honored guests and players. 我们有请省体育局局长王向晨先生，市政协主席李洪亚先生，乔丹体育副总经理吕振川先生上台。女士们、先生们，获得第3名的选手来自于埃塞俄比亚贾马 ，the third prize winner is Miss Jama from Ethiopia。获得第2名的选手，同样来自于埃塞俄比亚伊玛娜 ，the second prize winner is Miss Imana from Ethiopia。女士们、先生们，冠军的获得者是来自于埃塞俄比亚的古尔梅萨 ，the champion is Gurmesa from Ethiopia。首先，我们有请甘肃省体育局局长王向晨先生向我们的获奖运动员颁发奖杯。Let's welcome Mr. Wang Xiangchen to award the trophy to our winners. 谢谢王先生。接下来我们有请市政协主席李洪亚先生为获奖运动员颁发奖牌。Let's welcome Mr. Li Hongya to award medal for our winners. 谢谢李先生。接下来，我们有请乔丹体育副总经理吕振川先生为我们的获奖运动员颁发奖票和花环。Let's welcome Mr. 吕振川 to award the prize for our winners. 同时还将为我们的冠军获得者颁发获赛会纪录奖。1万美金。谢谢李先生，请留步。我们有请王先生、李先生一起来到舞台中间，和我们的冠军一起合影留念。有请3位颁奖嘉宾。女士们、先生们，兰州银行杯2019兰州国际马拉松赛女子组的冠亚季军就此诞生。再次感谢我们的颁奖嘉宾，谢谢你们，谢谢颁奖嘉宾，请休息。也再次恭喜我们的运动员们，恭喜你们。女士们、先生们，我们女子组的颁奖仪式到此结束，让我们继续把目光投向我们的终点赛道。